Let's begin with our sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the 7th TAFISA Award Sport for All Games 2021 and in Portugal, Lisbon, I would like to welcome you to this international conference. This is the session 3, Diversify the Sport Offer, the new sport and discipline support from the participant. My name is Jorge Carvalho. I am director of Portuguese Institute of Sport and Youth in Portugal, as well the member of the EU, the Portuguese presidency for the Council of the European Union. I would like to introduce to you our guests. The distinguished guests are Jean-François Laurent from TAFISA, France, Mr. Duane Vivinsky, World Dodgeball Federation from Canada, and Ms. Chiara Volonté, International Dodgeball Federation, Italy. And I will begin the first speaker. I will invite the first speaker, Jean-François, to introduce himself and saying the name, the country, the entity, and about the presentation we will offer to us in this 3 session. Give the floor, Jean-François.
Thank you very much, George. And I must say it's a real pleasure to be asked to be part of this session today. It has been many years in the making to organize the 7th TAFISA World Sport for the Games in Portugal. And this very session, I believe, really is something that will be a core part of it, because what we are doing as part of the Games is to highlight the diversity of sports, highlight the diversity of games, of movement cultures which are existing around the globe. And myself, so as junior director of TAFISA, working in Frankfurt, but coming from France, I'm very keen on introducing to you today our new project called Interact. International and European Sport Organizations Activate Citizens.
Thank you. Go on, please.
So I will share my screen. It will just take a second. Here we are. So Interact, International and European Sport Organizations Activate Citizens. This is a brand new project which TAFISA has launched in January, along with 8 other project partners. It is a project which is co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. However, this is a project which has a very global outreach from our point of view. As you might know, and as many TAFISA members or partners know, TAFISA counts at the moment some 70 international organizations which are members of our organization. And they are all striving to promote sport for all, to promote physical activity, and they represent organizations which are umbrella organizations, which are federations governing their sport, or sometimes various sports. And in our will to increase participation in sport for all and physical activity worldwide, in our will to create a better world through sport for all, we, for the very first time, have gathered a selected number of the 70 members, and we have started to work with them and to extend already to a number of other international federations and international sport organizations to find out how international sport organizations can play a more important role in promoting sport for all and physical activity. So it's a 24-month project. It gathers the ITTF Foundation, which represents the International Table and Tennis Federation, the World Mini Golf Sport Federation, the International Fistball Association, the International Dance Organization, the International Boccia Confederation, so all international sport organizations which have different backgrounds. Yes, some of them recognized by the International Olympic Committee and GIFs, some of them Olympic, some others non-Olympic, so different profiles. And we have also gathered national federations, including the German Flying Disc Federation, the Italian Traditional Sports and Games Federation, and also the Sports Union of Slovenia. What we are trying to do together, really, the rationale of the project is to try to harness the power of sport and physical activity in society. We want to explore with those international sport organizations how they can, beyond their role as the governing body of their sport, beyond their role in organizing international competition, international sport events, beyond organizing and representing their national federations, what can they do themselves to play a leading role in the promotion of grassroots sports and in the promotion of physical activity? So what we're trying to do is to initiate the development of a new sport delivery framework, which places sport for all and physical activity at its core. So it's about finding out how new sports, how sports which are less known, can play a role in engaging more people to be active. It's also about looking at those sports which are famous and how can they adapt their disciplines, how can they adapt the rules, the settings, how can they adapt their offer to the target groups. We have some examples in the case, for example, of table tennis with TTX. We have some example with the Badminton World Federation, which has launched air badminton, which is rather accessible to everybody around the world playing outside. But there are many other examples. So it's about looking at the diversity of international sport organizations which are existing. Once again, some Olympic ones, some recognized ones, some non-Olympic, non-recognized, and find out how each can play a role, how they can promote sport for and physical activity themselves. We wish through the project, of course, to support them ourselves. It's about trying to help them operate this transition towards sport for all. And it targets all international sport organizations worldwide. Moving, of course, the objectives of the project. This is finding out what can be the place of international sport organizations within the general international policy papers, the WHO Global Action Plan Physical Activity, the UNESCO Kazan Action Plan, United Nations SDGs, EU Article, and others. Those are all international policy papers which are governing the world of sport, and we want to find out how can international sport organizations play a role in implementing them. It's about trying to inscribe once again sport for physical activity within international sport organizations, policies, strategies, structures, to empower them, deliver sport for all strategies and delivery frameworks, to of course widen the current offer sport for all activities through innovative formats worldwide. And of course, once again, to reflect on how to adapt the traditional sport systems, sport disciplines to the needs of target groups. So we want to change the paradigm. It's not about bringing people to sport. It's about adapting sport to the needs and the expectations of people at the grassroots level. What are the activities which we are doing as part of this project? They are manifold. 7 outputs are currently planned. We are still at the very beginning of the project at the moment. A first work, which we have just finished, and which was led by the World Mini Golf Sport Federation, is to create an online database of international and European sport organizations. We all know the Olympic sports. We all know sports which are parts of World Games. But what we didn't know until we made this work is that worldwide, today, there are more than 330 international sport organizations existing. They are representing sports which we know, sports that we know a little bit less. I'm thinking of floorball, I'm thinking of Quidditch, I'm thinking of kinball, of others which which many of us didn't hear about. But they also represent sports which sometimes are known but governed by different federations, and they represent as well a variety of disciplines. And all of those federations very often, once again, are not known by the people. Yes, some of them have 200 member countries, like the ITTF for table tennis. Some others maybe have members in 30 or 40 countries. They are only at the beginning of their development. And they're sports, but if they are adapted, if they are made for all, we will hear about Dodgeball and Dodgeball later, they have the potential to grow and to reach out to more and more people in different geographies, in different societal and social backgrounds as well. So we have this database which is now existing, which we will and which we'll make use of course, to work with all of those organizations to promote sport for all. Number two is to create an international sport organizations pledge for sport for all physical activity promotion. This is a little bit a political side to the project. That is to say that many international sport organizations, at least the 70 which have joined TAFISA as members, are recognizing sport for all as part of their mandate. And there are many more out there which have not joined TAFISA, but which are working every day to promote sport for all physical activity. And what we want to do, so we have made a preliminary work at the moment to analyze all international policy papers, once again, WHO Global Action Plan Physical Activity, UNESCO Kazan Action Plan, UN SDGs, and others, etc. And we are trying to identify among the priorities of all of these papers, where can international sports organizations be relevant? Where can they play a role to reach out the objectives of those papers? Where can they not play a role to a little bit better define and find out what they can do and where they can make a difference? And out of this analysis, we will engage, of course, talks with numerous international sports organizations to find maybe together a common ground, to find and to create this pledge of actions that international sport federations believe they can do in the field of sport for all and physical activity. Number three, which is very much linked to number two, of course, is and we are doing this right now, is to develop a study and report on international sport organizations' challenges, opportunities, needs, and expectations in sport for all. Because among those 330 international sport organizations which we have identified, not all of them, once again, are in the same stage of development. Some of them have a lot of funds. I'm thinking of professional sports, for example. Some others are much less developed. There are different stages. So we are trying to identify what international sport organizations, depending on their background, depending on their structure and the level of organizations, what they are doing well, what they are doing less well to promote sport for all. We are trying to identify what are success factors in promoting sport for all among some federations, what can be transferred to others. We are also trying to find out what are expectations of international sport organizations, because it is not a given for many of them that promoting sport for all is a priority. And if we are to encourage them, if we are to convince them and to work together with international sport organizations to diversify their offer, to increase the offer to various target groups, we need to find out what they expect. Do they need help? Do they need support? Under what form? What are their needs? So it's an important work we are doing now. We just launched a survey which has gone to those 330 organizations to find out what they are doing already, what are their needs. We are also organizing at the end of June 2021 a consultation workshop with a selected number of them to be able to talk to them directly and listen to them. And out of those activities, we will try to come up with conclusions which will inform, as a second step, the development of further outputs. Those outputs are number 5, 6, and 7 on this slide. First of all, out of those needs and expectations which we have identified, we want to create a toolkit of very practical recommendations, practical tools, practical insights, quick wins, assets, examples of what international sport organizations, depending, of course, on their structuration and their capacity, what can they do to promote sport for physical activity within their setting. And this will be linked with number 6, a training, a capacity building framework in sport for physical activity, where we will try to empower the leaders, the volunteers, the professionals of those international sport organizations to promote sport for physical activity, and of course indirectly as well their national federations. So All of this will be also piloted in 2022 within the framework of the project. Another output number 4 is to create a good practice online platform, because once again, a lot of international sport organizations are already doing well, have already programs in place to promote sport for development, social inclusion, health, anything, or to promote sport for all, and we can really learn out of those. And finally, what we want to do is to create a new international sport for all event. Not a competition, not a championship, but something like a festival to bring together international sport organizations, their disciplines, their new sports, the variety of what is existing, and to promote those sports to the public, to promote those sports to our target groups in various places and geographies. So we don't know yet how this will look like, but we have this this ambition, and we have this motivation to try to gather international federations and international sport organizations together to promote sport for all. So yeah, those are a few pictures, of course, of our partners at the moment: international dance organizations, International Table Tennis Federation, or World Flying Disc Federation. The project timeline, of course, any organization worldwide is very welcome to join the project, to collaborate with us. We kicked off in January. We have a consultation workshop with a number of international sport organizations at the end of June. We were supposed to have a conference during the TAFISA World Congress this October, but this has been postponed to June 2022. In line with the postponement of the TAFISA World Congress, which will take place between the 8th and the 12th of June 2022. And we are planning to pilot our capacity building workshop and toolkit in April 2022. Finally, this new event, this new festival, we are planning to pilot as well in September 2022 as part of the second TAFISA European Sport for All Games, which will take place in Perugia in Italy. So yeah, this is what I wanted to share with you at this stage, how we are trying really to increase the variety of the sports and the physical activity offer from international sport organizations to the grassroots. And we really hope to have positive outcomes and to inspire young people, to inspire the citizens across the world to become active through many different ways. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jean-Francois, for this project. I know TAFISA have a great job at world level, at European level, but it is indeed an innovative project, because as the European Commission said, you need to tailor the program. And I think this project is important to adapt to the need of the people, because you have the vulnerable population, the elderly, disabled people, the refugees, the children. And in the other side, the TAFISA is helping the member organization to offer the new products and the new service. And I think is very important is the new trends, because you need to adapt with the idea of the children, of the young people, according of the trends. Thank you. Now I will move for Duan. Thank you for to be with us. I would like to introduce yourself, saying your name, your entity, and your role, and the name of your presentation. Duan, please.
Thank you very much. So my name is Duane Wazinski. I'm the current president of the World Dodgeball Federation. We are located here in Edmonton, Canada, but we have members all around the world. I wanted to talk today about a topic that's very important to us as a new organization, and that's the idea of developing ethical stability. And I want to speak to it because as a new and emerging sport that looks to diversify the landscape in sports, we find that the people coming to us have certain expectations and they have certain views on why they want to join our sport. And I think this is true with a lot of emerging sports. So just a quick background, the World Dodgeball Federation is the governing body for the promotion of dodgeball globally. We have 80 members across the world. We were founded in 2011, but we reincorporated in 2017. And we did so because we wanted to ensure that the very foundations of our approach in the sport, in developing sport, was around transparency and engagement at the community level. Our focus is on inclusion. It's getting people active and moving in sport. And this is what we try to promote as an organization. So the reason I wanted to talk about ethical stability is where we find a lot of our folks come to us is we engage communities that are often not already engaged in sport. So we do not necessarily share a demographic with basketball or football, although a lot of our players do those other sports. But we find a lot of people come to us that are just seeking fellowship. They're seeking engagement. They're seeking community. And the best way that our sport has found to do that is to provide some sense of trust and some sense of opportunity for these people. As a new sport, we have an opportunity to do with a lot of sports are struggling with nowadays, which is an environment that is based on inclusion, on empowerment of the athlete, empowerment of the individual, and trust. So this presentation that I'll go through quite quickly today was actually piloted by Dodgeball Canada at the national level with Bianca Segato and I. And we presented this to the Sport for Life Summit back in January as a response to a lot of issues that were developing in the sports landscape. Our approach to ethical stability includes very much being grounded in communication and transparency, being able to reach out to athletes, reaching out to administrators, and making sure that everyone feels this sense of mutual trust and mutual experience. And we find by having that kind of a community and that kind of approach, this is how people get engaged to participate, where they feel safe, they feel welcome, they feel a part of what's happening in sport. So when I look at our values for the sport, you'll see that our sport, like a lot of emerging sports, we do not have a path to the Olympics. We do not have a path to the gold medal. We do have a world championships, and we've been running a world championships since 2012. But that's not the focus of the sport. The focus of our sport is to get people involved. So you can see that our very first value is inclusion. How do we get people to participate? And as our sport has grown over the years, one of the things that we found is that national federations don't come to us with the same objective. Some emerging national federations will come to us because they want to be a part of an international organization. They want to participate in events like TAFISA World Sport Games or in other high-profile events. But essentially what they want is they want a vehicle to deliver to their communities, to increase participation, especially among youth and students. And this has been kind of a driving force for us. So if you look at our values, there is a high level component. We do talk about the activity of success and progression and long-term athlete development. But what we really want to focus on as a sport is that building of community, making a safe space for people to encourage participation, to encourage sport for all, and to encourage them to share their knowledge and experience together. So ethics is the center of this. We all know all sports have dealt with issues around ethics over the course of the past forever. But in the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of this come to light. Issues around harassment or sexual assault or marginalization, a lack of inclusion, a lack of diversity. These issues are becoming more and more vocal and spoken about and addressed head on. And as a new sport, as an emerging sport, we have the ability to be in front of it. So we're not necessarily course correcting and looking at past experience and thinking, well, how do we change what we've been doing? We can take this opportunity to learn from other sports, to learn from their experiences and say, how do we position the sport of dodgeball as something that's welcoming, inclusive, transparent, something that would be attractive for people to come and play, to come and engage in. The last bullet point here that I mentioned, we're seeing a lot of athletes, we're seeing a lot of participants, we're seeing a lot of community leaders in sport have a certain demand for transparency. They want an organization that stewards the sport in a fair and open way. And this is what we've tried to achieve since day one, and over the last year have started to put real focus on how that translates into policy and outcome. So what is the climate right now for our sport? Well, our sport is an interesting one. Many people have played dodgeball in many countries, but the version that they play or their idea of dodgeball changes from region to region. But one of the things that we see happen is people look at the sport and they see it as a bully sport. They see it as, you are throwing a ball, you are hitting someone, you are targeting someone, and therefore, the stronger the better. This has not been our experience in the community. We have a very strong community foundation in all of our countries. Most of our dodgeball nations grew as clubs, community clubs, recreational leagues that became more sophisticated over time, stronger governance over time. And so while we've had this kind of natural community tone to our sport, we haven't been free of problems. The problem with close-knit communities is they sometimes become too entitled, they become too selective, they become too exclusive. And so these are the things that we've tried to address with our go-forward policy and approach to it. So here in Canada, the sporting powers at Sport Canada have developed what they call the Universal Code of Conduct to prevent and address maltreatment in sport. It's a long term and it's a very thick document, and it's supposed to look at everything around code of conducts and ethics to promote a more open and stable environment. The problem with the code that we found is it tends to be a bit reactive, and it tends to be it sets the rules without talking about how do you address the tone? How do you deal with a community if there is bullying? How do you deal with a community if there is exclusion? How do you deal with a community if people don't feel safe and welcome and you aren't able to gather the individuals you need and the participants you need to actually grow? So what we've done is we've looked at other international federations, we looked at other policies, and we wanted to think about how we would approach the sport in terms of something that was all inclusive and how would we apply it. What we want at the end of this is something that's very broad and collective and reflects the views of our membership. So while we see things getting better when it comes to inclusion in sport, when it comes to athlete protection, when it comes to harassment, we know we're not there yet, but we have an opportunity to be at the front of it. So if we look at some of the issues facing the sport in terms of inclusion and in terms of the perception of it being a bit of a bully sport or a bit exclusive in certain circles, what are some of the solutions to doing this? Well, for start, we need to be very mindful of the fact that as an international federation, we steward the sport. We have an obligation to our members and to our athletes to have that lead best practice, right? Every country will develop their own policies. Every country will follow their own guidelines. But as an international federation, we have to set some example. We have to set the direction from the top. And so what we are developing is an overarching policy that looks not only at code of conduct and ethics, but how do you increase inclusion? How do you recognize diversity? How do you understand that going into different areas of the world, you are going to get different viewpoints, you are going to get different traditions, and you have to be culturally sensitive to those. So how do you do that? We can leverage what's already been done. There's been excellent work that's been done and continues to be done, and we don't have to start from scratch. But in leveraging that, we have to add to it. We have to understand our own community and how we are going to approach it. So what we are, the objective for the organization is to create a singular process, a blueprint, that when a new federation comes along, or a developing federation, we can speak to them and say, here are the expectations that we have. These are our core values, and we need our core values to be reflected in the way that you do your business, how you operate, and how you deal with your athletes. The last part speaks quite well to the concept of good practices in the work that's being done with TAFISA is we need to share and promote and endorse these policies. We can't have something that's just standalone where the World Federation says, here's what you will do. We need countries to come forward and say, these are our limitations, these are our constraints, this is how we overcame it, so that there's actually a very pooled solution to how we approach this. Now, one of the things that we know in our experience, and many of you leading sports probably see, whether it's at the international level or the national level, is that adoption is not the problem. Many times our members will adopt policies. Our national members will create policies that they expect that their members adopt, and people will adopt them just fine. But how do you implement them and create a system that's sustainable? So we develop a universal code of conduct. We develop athlete protection guidelines. We share those with members. Our members say, yeah, we'll adopt those. But how do you sustain that? And how do you ensure that that's happening to the athlete's protection, coaches, recreational participants? How do you ensure that that's happening? One thing that we have learned is if members aren't actively engaged in the process, they will not feel the need to steward that and champion it to the same degree. So we need to find a way to engage our members and to keep them involved in this. We also need to be able to tie these policies and these expectations to something tangible. So the expectation is you do this in order to get this, right? There has to be some connection. It cannot just be performative. We can't just say, this is what we believe with nothing behind it. Now, one of the things that we do understand, we understand this at the national level, we understand it internationally, is that there's still a stigma of action. A lot of developing sports like ours, where we lack a lot of the money, we lack a lot of the support, we lack some of the official status. Sometimes there's a hesitant to be too strict with members and to say, you know, we don't want to upset the community, so we're going to not be as stringent with our measures. But this is something we have to overcome. At some point, new sports have to say, you know, we're still trying to work our way into the fold. We're still developing, we're still learning. But if we aren't strict about this, if we do not put expectations on our community that are high expectations, then the sport will not progress in the way that it needs to. So how do we solve this? Well, again, this was something being piloted at the Dodgeball Canada level. And we're adopting this at the international level, is first of all, a governance officer. Someone that exists within the organization that understands the values of the organizations, the objectives, and who's going to oversee, making sure that there's an expression that's probably not universal, but it's walking the talk, that we're actually doing what we say we're going to do. And we need someone that's at arm's length to look at that and say, well, as an organization, you're pledging to be transparent. You are pledging to be promote safety for your athletes. Are you actually doing that? The second thing is to develop an ethics commission. And this goes back to our idea of having members engaged and take some ownership of it. By having an ethics commission that spans different stakeholders, spans different national federations, we can get their input and we can get their inclusive opinion. So if there is a country that says, well, things are a bit different here in the way that we approach it, our culture is different, our approach is different, that voice is being heard, right? We want to make sure people feel like their voice is being heard. We want to set up an ombudsman for the organization. So if something happens at the national level, they have a place to go. For a lot of our athletes, there's this feeling of a lack of recourse. You know, where do they go when there's an issue that emerges? And we want to provide them with that opportunity. And lastly, and again, speaking to Jean-Francois's earlier comment, we want to create a shared repository. We want to have a location online where members can contribute. We could track any issues. We can track member violations or athlete transgressions that happen at events. We can track all of this in one spot with respect to privacy, of course, so that as a community, as a global community, we have a real grasp of where the issue is and what some of the problems are. Okay. So how do we implement this? Well, let's go back to our original premise. Our original premise is that as an emerging sport, looking to diversify the landscape, looking to attract new people, looking to promote people's activity in sport from a sport for all perspective and not just from this competitive stream. How can we do this to reach out to the broader community? Well, the starter, we need a bit of a starting point for federations. We need an introductory kit with guidelines and policies, with some direction on how to start. We might have a young federation from a small country come to us and they want to be a part of Dodgeball so bad. Very much welcome to do so. But how can we help them start and establish themselves, not just in a governance sense or a legal sense, and we're always willing to help with that, but in an ethical sense, in a way that they are starting off with this transparency and this view towards protection of athletes. So how do we do that? And that's one of the places we can start. The next is, how do you link this to practices? How do you make it work? Well, for us, we've said a couple of things. One, when we develop our member agreements, there's going to be reference in there to expectations around code of conduct, athlete protection, inclusion policy, transgender policy. Those are all going to be called out specifically in member agreements, with the idea that if you want to participate at the international level, if you want to participate in events that we do, we need to know that you are protecting your athletes and your coaches and your governors, administrators, and that there is a transparency to the way that you do business. So everybody feels like they're part of that community. And lastly, we understand that this is going to differ from region to region, as we said. We are not unaware of cultural sensitivity or cultural differences. But again, it's how do we make this better? How do we move this from one point to another? And this is where we really need to kind of put a lot of our efforts, right? The effort has to be in moving the change a little bit so that people feel that they're progressing forward and moving forward. So this can be written into our membership agreement, and it's part of the policies we do. Ultimately, where we would like to get to is a location where our members feel collectively part of the same community, that we're all striving for the same thing, and that the programs that we do, so in Canada, we target newcomer programs, we target Indigenous communities. When we target those programs and meet with those populations, we know, again, the gold medal isn't the goal. Participation, community, fellowship, these are the goals. And we want to make sure that we have the policies that will encourage those, sustain those, and make everyone feel like they are a protected part of our fellowship. So at the end, what do we want to have in place? A nurturing, inclusive environment, people that feel that they're safe in sport. Sport becomes a destination for them, a safe destination, a haven for them. There is a family atmosphere to it. We want administrators to feel empowered, that they can control the situation, they can take the necessary action to ensure safety. And we want everyone to feel that this is done with an air of transparency, so people don't feel like something is being kept for them. So administrators at the end, they feel empowered, connected with their peers, and athletes and coaches all feel trusted by the administration. So thank you. That's my thoughts on this. Again, I think this is a key pillar in diversifying sport, and it's a key opportunity for a growing sport like ours. So please reach out to me, and if you have any questions or comments, and you would like to connect in any way.
Thank you, Dwayne. I think is a good, smart, strategic, competitive position in the market. I think it's very important to combine the ethics and the sustainability, because we have, in fact, so many people, they don't do sport. There are so many inactive people, and sometimes the offer is the same: football, soccer, basketball. And now you must diversify, but to have a position in the ethics positions and stable position. Thank you. We'll move now for Chiara, our lady in this panel. I invite you to present yourself, saying your
Thank
name.
you, Jorge. Thank you, Jorge. I am Chiara Volonté from Italy. I'm a PE teacher, but here I am representing the International Dodgeball Federation. I am the vice president. And what I would like to share with you today is the diversity and the innovation that comes from the dodgeball that was invented some years ago, but is quite new anyway. I share my screen now. Okay. I am happy to be here. I am really grateful for your invitation. What I would like to speak about today is the diversifying offer of new sport. In the case dodgeball is really a new concept and a new idea of sport. Dodgeball has been created by a Swiss biologist, Dr. Hermann Brandt, in 60s with the goal to create really a sport for all, with the main idea to allow all people to play together. And is that also an idea that the objective of the human physical activities is not to make champions, but rather to help the construct of the human harmonious societies, because for him, sport was a tool of education, as normally we agree it is. Brandt was concerned about the very high number of injuries in sport, because it was made the rehabilitation of athletes. And he made some study and research, and he realized that the 70% of injuries is made by physical contact, obstruction, and contrast. So he wanted to create a different sport, a new sport, very anyway funny, and but reducing the injuries, and more than this, something that was not aggressive between player, and allowed the people of all shapes, size, gender, culture, background to play together. It took almost 10 years of this brainstorming to do the invention, and it arrived to the final version of Chukball, and it presented it in the Congress of International Federation of Physical Education in August 1970 in Lisbon. And he got a very important prize, that was a prize to land. And coming back from the Congress, I started to spread and promote the game, because I was, of course, very motivated by this consensus he received in this Congress. Let's explain a little bit what is Chukball, because it's not so well known. So before to go on and describe some characteristics that are original, just an idea. You play in the field, like the official game, I mean, is a basketball court. You play with the ball only with the hand. The ball has the same size of a handball. You can only use your hands and or the upper body, I mean, in case of contact. You have to throw in the ball into the field. You have to make some passes, and after you shoot, you mean you attack to the strange goal, that is a frame, Chukball frame, that is made by metal, the iron, and there is a net and some elastic that make the ball bounce back. If the ball fell down into the field, is score. If a ball is kept by the opponent, they restart immediately to play, as idea like the attack of volleyball. When you catch the attack of volleyball, you start immediately to play. There is no stop, no break. And instead, if you shoot too long, too high, too strong, and the ball goes out, is a given score for the opponent. But there is many other way to make a given score. Anyway, this is quite dynamic. There is some many other rules that we have no time now to describe, but I think everyone can go in our website and look, and there is thousands of videos in YouTube. One of the main characteristics that is really different is we share the field, but the obstruction and the interception is forbidden. Is forbidden. You cannot steal the ball. In this way, of course, the injuries are drastically reduced, and also the episode of aggressiveness are avoided. Since you cannot steal the ball, you say, why you play? I mean, you let finish the action of the opponent, like in volleyball, just an idea, and then you organize your defense. That means catch the ball from the frame, and you immediately start again to play. So this allowed to the single, but also to the team, to play the best, because there is no one in front of you that can make the obstruction. And this is something that works, especially I am a PE teacher. I know there is many students, they don't like fight for the ball. They don't like, a little bit shy. They never go to take the ball from the other. They don't like this kind of sport, and this is a perfect sport for them. I realized that them are really happy to play this sport, and they don't feel in some way you know, a little bit inferior or a little bit weaker than opponent, because they can make their job. The other idea is you cannot play alone. That is quite normal in a team, of course, but I mean, you cannot make alone the action to go run across the field and then go to attack, because you need to your team. The other idea, let's play the opponent, is something that seems nonsensical. And my student, for example, they say, how can work a sport that you cannot steal a ball, you can intercept? It seems you can do a game, you cannot play. that's wrong, because this worked perfectly because each player has a strong limitation in action. I mean, it's free to act, but he has only 3 seconds to hold the ball, only 3 steps to move forward, and then he must pass. So he cannot cross the whole field. He must build the action of attack going to the frames really with the help of the mate. It's really a group action. So this is something that is very educating for cooperation, teamwork, play together, be together. And we need also the weaker player, because without them, we cannot go to finish our action. So this reach several categories. Also beginners, for example, are immediately included in the team, because we need them to finish the action. All the players are playing in different roles, of course, but all the players are useful, are really important to finish the action and to go to attack, for example, or for defense as well, because since the rebound is really surprising, you need to cover in defense all the field, and nobody is excluded, as sometimes may happen in other sport, where the stronger the attacker is the best player and the strongest player, and the other are aside and not having fun. Chukball was designed to be a mixed gender team. This is another very interesting characteristic, because girls and boys can play really together. This is possible exactly because there is no obstruction, there is no physical contact. So also girls can take balls without having a 190-meter tall boy in front of her. And this is perfect, especially at school, to educate kids at gender equality in organic way, and using what for kids is the favorite, the game, the play, the fun. So this is really works not only in kids, in students. This works for everyone, because as you know, for sure that many researchers and survey we have done also in my university, some thesis degree making researching among the women and the girl about how many sport they practice, how many physical activity they do, and we realize that girls and women practice really less physical activities than boy and men. Sometimes they go to the gym, they practice mostly single activity, yoga or Pilates, that are perfect. I love them. But especially growing up, they don't think to can start to play a team sport, especially a team sport in between men. Chukwuel allowed them to do that, offer a new occasion, a new way of inclusivity, a new opportunity of competition at the same level without any frustration of gender difference. I play in the middle of tall men, but I am able to play. I'm a bad player anyway, and nobody is going against me, and so I can do my job. But it's really psychological, very well. I feel well. I feel comfortable. Also, I'm going to play in the middle of men. That is not happening always in other sport. About the gender, Chukball has been used as a tool for many projects and programs in several countries, even in a country and situation where the topic gender equality is very sensitive. May I do some example? In Uganda, for example, just exactly the pandemic, our colleague from Uganda made a project to involve women, to empower women, to keep them out of the houses and make play them with chukball and with chukball in the middle of men. In Tunisia, we have a lot of women playing in the middle of the men. We have in Pakistan, in Morocco, and as well in Italy now. I speak about my countries. We realized 2 years ago a very nice project that was a larger project, was a project about equity, gender, taking a lot of aspects. So was in school, in the middle school. So they made some reading, they saw films and so on. They make draw pictures and art and so on. But as a practical activity, as a sport, was choosing chukball. And we call the projects Let's Play Together. Especially in that age, the medium school age, really boys and girls are very equal, because girls grow before than boy, and sometimes are also stronger than the boy when they are 13, 14. So it worked perfectly. After that, pandemic arrived, so we couldn't renew the project for 2020 and 21, but we are already the idea to make it again in my city, and maybe to share with other city and community the same project to do the next year. We hopefully, when the pandemic will be over. And another very strange characteristic, I think is the only one in the world, it is a bipolar game. It means you don't have your own goal. The team is not belongs any frame. You are free to attack to the both frames. So can you imagine, everybody are used to go in one side to attack, in another side to defend. It is something that is in mind, because all the games are set up in that way. In this way, instead, is quite surprising. At the beginning, I can tell you, people is not moving, because it's very first is where I have to go. Go everywhere. You are free to go everywhere, I tell to my students. So they have to rethink to the orientation and the play field, interception, the perception of space. So it's a kind of cerebral fitness also, because they have to be always on focus on the ball moving and the opponent moving, and they have not to use the automatic movement coming from other sports. For when everything is new for everyone are beginners. So at school it worked very well, because sometimes the big shooter from basketball, they shoot too strong and the ball goes out, and the ball is given score for the opponent. So the weak girl shooting in perfect way is lower, make fall the ball into the field is a score. So it's very I mean, the people is very appreciated this characteristic, because it's completely new, and this kind of mentally stimulating people, especially people who could be maybe a little bit tired on board for the sport, that are very repetitive, are slower. You have a category of people that like quick sport, like to be in action, like to see change of side quickly, as a basketball, for example, and so on. Another characteristic, there is no dead moments and no dead zone. What does it mean? All the players must be very active and attentive to the game, following and monitoring the movement of the ball that suddenly change. Normally in other games, you follow the attacker or the defender. In chukball, you must follow the ball movement. Don't care the other opponent. You must follow the ball and prepare yourself for catch. And another characteristic is the variability of the bounce on the net. That with the evolution of the sport, new shoots have been invented, new movement, spin have been invented. So you expect maybe the ball in a zone of the field, and now with the simplest spin, the ball goes totally in an unexpected trajectory in another side of the place. So you must very be quick to catch the ball. And this not that moment, not that zone is also something that allowed to involve everyone and motivated to be part of the game, and the game without interaction is really funny for the player, but is also really funny for a spectator. For that reason, I put, instead of the children at school as I use in other picture, I put this picture is the European Championship 2018. And you see the people cheering and very enjoying the game, because there is a great movement into the film. Very adaptable, so we can play in different number of people. For example, we have an official version, of course, 7 player, but you can play 5-5, 3-3. You can play in less people. You can have a challenge 2 against 2 with 1 frame only, for example, like, you know, basketball 3 against 3 that now is Olympic sport, very new. We have as well a monopolar version, 1 frame only, with just a few change of rules. We can adapt them, and you can have a very flexible adaptation of the game. It depends, of course, if you are in a competition or you are playing just for fun. Something different. This flexibility makes possible also play all together, as was the idea of Dr. Brandt. This is a picture I love in particular, because a big family, 2 families that are close to my town, that made a team. It is a team made by 2 brothers with the wives, the 4 daughters, and the grandmothers. The grandmother was in the center field, so he didn't catch a really strong shot, but she received the passes and she sent the passes, a kind of playmaker, staying in the middle of the field. So you can have children asking to the parents to play. You can have children inviting parents to go to our training of the elderly, because they want also the parents be engaged in the game. And so this, I think, is very, very, very good. It's nice to see that this kind of situation. Another good quality, in my opinion, is that the field you can set is extremely easily. It's very simple, because you can use already a court existing, like a basketball, volleyball, handball court, because you can play until 9-9 in the basketball court. That was the original version of Chukwu before there were games 2009. You have only to add 2 semicircular forbidden zone, make as you want, with the cones, with the type, something you draw it and you want. And after that, the field is ready. You have not a huge structure. You have not anything very complicated, and you can also use every surface, because there is no bounce on the floor. So you can official game like World Championship, I played on parquet or linoleum, but you can play on the grass, on the sand, on the asphalt. In Africa, for example, they play on the dirt without the change of rule. The game, it is the same. You have just a flat and regular field of any kind of ground. That is something that you look at the picture, you have kids on the sand, you have young people on the street. You can really fold your frame in a car and go and play when you are going on a park, for example. Chukwu is very affordable. It's affordable. The official material, I mean, also if not homologated by international federation, there is a lot of material for school that is good quality. They can play for years without being broken, but it's not expensive, absolutely not expensive. But you can also play with the adapted frames. You see some example here. You can have simple frames made in wood. You can have a trampoline. You can make the adaptation a trampoline. Just you must calculate the bounce. That the trampoline is has less tension that the frame, of course, so the bounce is smaller, so you reduce a little bit the forbidden zone, and you can immediately play. You see the kids at school, they didn't have the frame, they used the trampoline. But as in especially less developed country, you can build by your own frames. You can build in wood or in other material. You can take iron and so on. You just put a net, some elastic. We have some video in YouTube that teach you how to build a frame. And the International Federation, because the most difficult part is the net, the International Federation is sending nets around the world. It's very cheap to send nets. The other part can be built already in the place. Chukball is strongly inclusive. See the picture. This is a project made by my dear colleague Giulio Calegari, that is the International Director of Chukball Development, and has built a project to make play people with the dwarfism, and they are able to play. It's amazing. They play well. They are happy to play a team sport. You don't need to be tall to play chukball. You just can catch and throw the ball and a little bit run, but you can also walk. Some of my teammates, they cannot run too much because of knee and so on. They simply walk. So it's something that can be accessible for many. But one of the things I am really most proud is the adaptation to wheelchair. Sport for all is not empty word in Chukball, are really a concrete reality. And in 2005, reading the text written by Dr. Brandt that was speaking about sport for all, came in my mind, sport for all means everyone, so why not for disabled? And I started with a group of people, skilled people, was physiotherapists, people working in hospital. Dr. Andrea Lanza was the one working in Milano hospital, making us the connection and starting to lead the project in hospital. And we started the adaptation. It was a long brainstorming because we made several try, we changed because it must work as well, Chukball, without changing the spirit and the logic of the game. And in 2011, International Federation approved the official game. So now we have small competition of wheelchair Chukball. I put the picture of competition just to let understand that it's not only a game that we play for fun, but we are starting to make a competition, of course, from the practice of basis, from the practice of beginners. At the end, you are challenged, you want maybe compete and build a team. That's something that allowed also to recruit also very difficult category to reach. There is not many wheelchair sport that have no physical contrast as a team sport. We have a lady that in our team that was a goalkeeper when she was younger, now is 55 more or less, and was scared to crash with so she wasn't anymore playing team sport. When she saw wheelchair Chukball, she came immediately. She is one of the most passionate player we have. So it's really something great. But moreover, normally we make play in wheelchair also people like me, people walking, also Chukball player of because they need to understand how difficult it is, and they need to understand how are the limitations, which effort they put the disabled that are, for me, more able than us, and really it is something fantastic in my opinion. Another example was that this is a school in Hungary. Since you don't have maybe too many wheelchair in school, but you have people in wheelchair, so it's difficult to build a team. There was a sort of mixed game with the people standing and people in wheelchair. The only caution you have to do is stay a little bit farther to avoid the crash and the collision between wheelchair and people standing. But if you pay attention, this very inclusive version of Chukball. After that, to slide again, you understood that it's a very different sport and was really coming from scientific study researches. This is a book of Dr. Herman Brandt, and this is a fantastic thing. Another and the last very point I really care is the ethical chart. during the creation of game, Brandt went above that game. He realized that it's not only a problem of aggressivity, it's a problem of ethics in that. So I absolutely agree with my colleague who spoke before me. We have a chart beside the rules, and the chart is very important for us. It's something to make the difference between some other sports. It's a kind of manifesto on you have to learn mutual respect, good sporting behavior, make a spectacular game, because good game recall the good game of the other team. Aggressivity game and aggressiveness recall the aggressiveness from the other game. So we say we don't play against, we play with, because we can play only if we have an opponent. Without opponent, we cannot play. So it makes a really an extraordinary and innovative tool to make education while having fun. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Dwayne, and thank you, Jean-Francois. We have about 25 minutes. You have some questions, but you can share experience, opinion, and some comments. But I would like to begin with questions, informal and not formal, competition and not competition, because they are speaking about sport for all, but it's so beautiful image and skills. And as Dwayne say, it can have a competition, local, regional, and international. And Chiara shows the competition in wheelchairs, yes, dwarf players and standing people. And as you know, the TAFISA promote the sport for all, traditional sport and games, but you have also some competition, the new sport. It can begin with Dwayne with your comments, please.
Yeah, so I think very important for especially new sports is to find a way or find ways to engage different skill levels. One of the things that, as I was mentioning with members that come to us in Dodgeball, they're not all looking to do the same thing. Some members want to come and they want to play competitive and they want to develop as athletes. But many of our members come to us because they are looking to find, and to Chiara's point, an affordable, accessible sport that can be easily shared with the community. There are some sports that are wonderful sports, like skiing or ice hockey, but they require equipment. They require defined space. With a sport like dodgeball, you can play in a field, you can play in a parking lot, you can play on the beach. And the biggest thing that we promote to our members above anything else is get people playing, get people active, remove whatever barriers exist for them to be nervous or hesitant to join, and make it an environment where they want to be there. So agreed that when it comes to sport for all, a sport that is affordable and easy to put into the hands of a community is going to achieve a lot in terms of getting the population active.
Okay, thanks. And Sharon, your opinion?
Yeah, my opinion is the same. In my opinion, competition could be a good part to give some motivation also, because also some part of the people, the students and so on, they are looking, for example, in other sport, to the champion, that they are trying to play like them, to make some try to the same shoot, to the same movement and so on. It's happened also in Chukball. I saw people that was training alone in my school with the frames only in a corner and trying to shoot and shoot and shoot because they had a target. They want to learn how to shoot in that place. this is something great because you are training yourself, you are improving your skill, you are mentally concentrated, you are motivated to make movement. Of course, the competition must be not the only goal. The goal is, first of all, practice physical activity, make sport, have fun, and all the things I said in the presentation. That is the main goal. But also champions, I say, or athletes started from that, started beginner, and many of them, they didn't need a suppose to become a champions. They start and play for fun, and then realize to have skills. It's happened. Some have natural skills. I have some players that they have never played before, and they immediately, in a few minutes, start to play well. Some they need a lot of exercise, but the most important, involve people, especially involve the category that are difficult to reach, that are in some way or disappointed or not self-confident, or they don't feel good enough and something like that. Because I made a long jump, I was always a single sport to me. I didn't play team sport when I was younger. Yeah. And in this way, it is 25 years that I am working with Chukball. So I found my team sport, and I think for many other people, it is the same.
Good. Thank you, Sharon. And Jean-François, your opinion, comments?
Yeah, thanks, George, and thanks again, Dwayne and Chiara, for those amazing presentations. I think if to relate to your question, George, and if I can really take out some elements out of the two presentations that were just made before. I mean, yes, competition is an inherent part of sport. I mean, without competition, who would play? A lot of people would just not join. This is part of the cascade of the motivation, of the fun. But competition is not attracting everybody. And as part of sport, all you to do is to be inactive. And there is this element of those two presentations you made, how able you are to change rules, how able you are to change the setting, the infrastructure, how you can change the equipment as well. So how can we adapt sports to attract those who might say, well, I just want to have fun. I don't want to play every Saturday to play competition, to play match. So it's I think all about, and more international sports organizations start realizing this. How can they adapt their sport to attract some younger people, sometimes some older people, some people with disabilities, some people of different social or ethnic backgrounds. And it's sometimes just about turning one screw or the other, trying to find a way to adapt the equipment. Once again, do it yourself. This is an incredible concept that you have at Chukball, and we see it more and more in table tennis, for example, or others, that really can create a balance between, on the one hand, competition, and here we are already very well developed all across the globe. Every single international federation, every single international sport organization has well-developed frameworks of competition. This is the European model of sport very much, but which is also existing everywhere around the globe with sport clubs, sport federation, international federations. But how do we attract and how do we work with people who are inactive and are interested in the club system? We can come with a new sport with the same model. If people are not interested, they will not go. If we try to attract them through different ways to be active, then it is different.
Yes, thanks. The first question is about the concept. The second question is about the police. Jean-François spoke about the police, UNESCO, Kazan, but you have a problem with the right to do sport, the equal opportunity for all. Because you have also not only able-bodied, you have disabled-bodied, the poor people, you have about 23 people in the European level with the risk of the exclusions and poverty, and you have immigrants and refugees. And it can begin with Jean-François, how to deal with these questions about equal opportunity and sport for all.
I think this is, from our experience, very much a shared responsibility. we have to realize more and more that sport is not only about the sport movement. Sport can only be done, of course, with municipalities in the local levels, with volunteers, with communities, with local associations. It is an ecosystem that creates opportunities for people to be active. And the role of international sport organizations, the role of the governing bodies of sport is key into creating what Duan was explaining, the ethical background, into creating the governance, into creating the structure and the policies where we are making the sport affordable, the sport accessible, the sport that opens opportunities for everybody to participate. So from this point of view, through Interact, for example, through the project, one of the recommendations that we have heard among the partners and others is that every international sport organization should have a code of ethics, should have statutes which recognize the fact that the sport should be open for everyone. So having some measures and dispositions from a structural, from a governing and from a political point of view among sport organizations that align with the policy at the international level. And then, of course, it's about looking at the practice, at the implementation. How can we drill this down and cascade it down through the various level of a federation? And how can we collaborate and match with the local communities, with the municipalities, with the clubs, the volunteers, the players, the participants, officials, etc., etc. So I think it is very much a shared responsibility. But there is a role of international sport organizations and of the sport movement, which because without this element of governance, of ethics, and of structuration to create opportunities for everybody, then we cannot achieve our goal at the end.
Okay, thanks, Jean-Francois. Cher, your time?
Yes, I am, probably because of my job, I have in mind always the school. The school is the first place to make sport and to educate to the sport, to offer sport for free. Also for the people who can afford to pay the gym, to pay the courses, and to pay, can play sport in school, can play sport for free in good quality if you have a good instructor and with qualified people, because we have teachers. It's also important to have good, not only good material, but also professional people that is helping to you to play a sport in a correct way, educate you and a better way. So I absolutely agree with Jean-Francois said. And in my mind, I really have some students that cannot afford to go to play soccer in the society that we have in my town, but they came back to school and school offered them the opportunity. But I made also a project for my municipality that we call, when you don't have money for study, there is someone that can pay you. That could be also for sport, and maybe someone can pay your fee in your club. So we have been to build a project where people is going for free in a team, in a club, and so on, and the municipality paid the fee instead of, or they just took for free the boy, the girl, because already the expenses are covered. They already paid the teacher, the trainer, with the fee of all the other. So the poor guy, the less for, when I say poor, the people is less lucky, may say, because we are lucky in some way. We didn't do anything to born in a good family, in a rich family, or in a the other kids must have the same opportunity. So try a way through your city and through other association that can offer some free places. The school, there are many ways. There is association like Panathlon International I belong to that offer this as well. I pay your fee because you can afford, but you have the right to make sport and to play with others at the same level without have any, feeling shame in some way.
Okay, thanks. Dwayne?
Yes, I mean, I agree with a lot of the comments, obviously. I think there are two kind of different tracks where we look at making the sport accessible. I think one is based on ability to afford. Communities, as mentioned, that are in poverty or with more challenging circumstances don't have access to sport. So what we do as a federation is we try to get balls, at the very minimum, balls to different new member federations, especially if they're in areas that are particularly challenged. So we want to be able to remove that as a barrier. We want cost to be removed as a barrier. In some of our countries, we have programs where newcomers, immigrants, refugees to the country have free try it days, days where they can come and they can try the sport, they can see what it's like. The comment about municipalities is excellent, because certainly in a lot of countries, municipal tourism boards, local tourism events associations, they have not spent a lot of money in the last 2 years because of the pandemic. And some of those communities are coming to us, we're finding in Dodgeball, and saying, we have funds, we want to do something, we want to bring sport back to the city, to the town. And so we are trying to engage with them for those opportunities to cover costs. The other bucket, I think, though, is the inclusion bucket around different communities, differently historically oppressed communities, and how to bring people that may have not felt part, or may have not felt welcomed in sport, or welcomed in locker rooms, or welcomed in their past experience. How do we bring them to the sport? And that's a challenge. But one of the things we've tried to do is engage in very specific programs for different communities to say, this is your sport too, and find ways to do that. So for the World Dodgeball Federation, like I said, we have members that have specific initiative to engage Indigenous communities in their countries. Our participation in the gay games in 2022 will be the first that Dodgeball's done that. Trying to do things that aren't just policy, but actual shows of support for communities. And I think that's important. If you want to truly grow sport among people, you have to make sure you're getting everybody in that mix.
Okay.
Jorge, may I add a little bit, a short thing that I forgot to say?
You can.
I mentioned it already during my presentation that we are sending nets and material to Africa, but we have a campaign of donation. For example, the richest federation sent material they don't use anymore, a uniform that used anymore, through International Federation, of course, that our colleague Giulio Calegari made the project, is bringing material for them. Uniforms are expensive, and more than this, we have a volunteer program. So International Federation pay the flight and the host of coaches going to teach in some new country in Africa especially, and to make grow the knowledge, how to play, how to ref, how to train, how to build frames as well. So if you teach them how to fish, you have not to send only the fish. They are able to do by themselves. And we have a very good program made by volunteer, organized by our colleague Giulio Calegari.
Okay, thanks. Share about fishing. I have easy questions. Is about fishing money, because you have the concept and you have the policy, the project, but you need money. I know for the European people, all the focus is in the European Commission about the Erasmus project and to give funding project. But I know the Germany have a good agency, GIS, in the international corporations, and Norway, the EA grants have also. And a few days ago, the G7, they have a historical agreement about the fiscal for the multinational organization. But as you know, the sport need money, the international sport, and for sport for all, and for development countries. What are your solutions and proposals? You can begin with Dwayne, please.
I look forward to hearing other people's solutions and proposals. This is an area where we've struggled in terms of funding and grants, because a lot of our countries, and Chiara probably can relate, we compete against bigger established sports. So in Canada, where we have one of the largest groups of dodgeball players in the world, you know, Canada is all about hockey and it's curling, you know, and in other countries, they compete with football, they compete with basketball. So it's very, very difficult. We've tried very, very hard to look at different approaches to partnerships with organizations to develop money. I mentioned municipalities. Municipalities is a good way to deliver the sport, to get funding to deliver the sport. It doesn't do a lot to help with operational costs or with some of the initiatives Chiara was speaking to about supporting other countries with coaching and that sort of thing. But municipalities are a good way to help deliver the sport. For us, what we've tried to do is we've tried to position our sport as, we have a very stable sport. We don't owe anybody money. We have a good infrastructure. Our governance is good. We have a good track record. We have great members. And we've been trying to position ourselves with partners to say, you know, there's a ready-made a voice for you, a ready-made platform if you're interested in helping to support. And because sports like ours can take different approaches, we can do high performance. We can, you know, we can get on networks and do big events, but we can also look at philanthropic causes and developmental causes, and looking at sport as an education and as a community tool. And so I think one of the things that sport needs to do is try to position itself not so much as just a way for a brand or a partner or a sponsor to get their name out there, but to actually contribute something and have a social program where a company is looking to say, we want to make a difference. We want to do good things in parts of the world. And a sport like ours can say, we can help you do that. So I think it's looking at the sponsorship and moving away from this idea of pure brand name. We're not getting Coca-Cola. We're not FIFA. You know, we can't do that. But what we can do is we can get organizations into any part of the world that they want to be and feel that they can make a difference. So I think, you know, sports like ours that have a real hard philosophy around ethics, around inclusion, around social responsibility, I think that's where we need to start developing our partnerships if we're going to continue to deliver the programming we'd like to deliver.
Okay, thanks. And Jean-Francois?
I think that Dwayne.
Yes, Jean-Francois.
The connection is.
You can move for share.
Yes, yes. I make an example. I absolutely agree with Dwayne what he said. And we are a small, we can say small organization. If we compare with soccer, in Italy, soccer is a religion. We can compete in my country, but in general, also speaking internationally, we can compete with a bigger organization. But in my opinion, when we had problem, now we are looking for fund, we found a solution. Just an example, we were struggling to have wheelchairs because when we started the adaptation of the game, we didn't have the sport wheelchair. We started to play with the hospital wheelchair, but if we want to train outside the hospital, we had normal wheelchair that could be also quite dangerous play with them because are less stable. If you take a high ball, you can fall down. So we made an investigation and we realized there is an organization like Foundation. We made a project, especially ethical project, our foundation are happy to finance. We found the Decathlon Foundation that is located in France, that is collecting project from all Europe anyway. We applied for the project, and in the end, they don't give you money, but they give you goods. So they gave us 15 wheelchair, 15 sport wheelchair. For us was absolutely the change of our project because before we have to borrow wheelchair or just train in hospital with them. we couldn't go around to make presentation in other spinal unit, for example. Now we belong our own wheelchair. It was a gift, a huge, immense gift. And in my opinion, there are many foundations that are ready to finance ethical projects, a project in which are involved refugee or other categories, poor people and so on, disabled as well. Just look for in our, I'm lucky in Italy, we have also some regional project, like bigger scale Erasmus project. We have a small project, but when you do something that is ethical, educational, and so on, you can have some fund also from the region. Why not from the state?
Okay, thanks. Jean-Francois, you come back? Yeah.
Yes. Sorry for the interruption. No, I think that we are really touching a point, important points, in the sense that nowadays communities, citizens, or even politicians are holding more and more sport accountable. It is not only about hosting big sport events anymore. It is not only about attracting events, attracting sports for the financial benefit of a city or of a country. And we see more and more what Chiara and Dwayne were explaining, that people are asking for social benefits, yeah, for the social impact that a sport and that an event, that an organization can have on people's lives. And there are a lot of organizations out there, like FITB, like as well the World Dodgeball Federations, which have this DNA among them. And I think in the future, we need to ask ourselves, how can we leverage this special DNA, which some organizations, with some new sports, or even old sports, which are reinventing themselves, how can we not join forces, but how can we use this DNA and profile it in a way to attract the attention of more funders, of municipalities, of governments, to create and to pull resources together? Because at the end, two federations like two could benefit from each other in their growth. How can we create alliances between sport federations, not always competitions as well, between as it has been in the past, trying to get a kid not play football but can play basketball? So how can we pull together those resources? How can we create this common messaging to attract the attention of funders, municipalities, governments, and others?
Okay, thanks. The last question is about the future, and that Jean-Francois worked for TAFISA, is the umbrella organization, the owner of this event, World Games, European Games, Congress. They have so many products and services, but I think Italy will organize, maybe will be organize the next European Games, Sport for All. And the next World Games will be in the Russian. I begin with Dwayne. Do you have some proposal, some recommendation for the next European World Games, or for the products or service from the TAFISA, please?
Yeah, well, I would say in terms of any future games, any future event, we've actually had conversations with TAFISA about this. I would like to see us, continue to grow the cultural element of the event, and to grow local sports and local traditional events. I know I've spoken in the past, and with the hopes that someday we do an event here in Canada. And if we do an event here in Canada, I would like to very much look at our Indigenous population, our Indigenous communities here. I would like to look at our history of French Canadian development, which is very different than a lot of the English Canadian development has been, and look at traditional events and things to integrate into the competition. Because again, competition is very important, but it's the element of involvement and for people to see themselves in the event. There are other competitions that do things like that, and they've been successful, and that's one thing I would love to see. Really heavy cultural and local sport component to events. In terms of in terms of other services and functions, anytime we can bring sports together and learn from each other, It was wonderful to watch Kiera's presentation and see things that we are also doing, and then things that we would like to do and haven't done, and then say, oh, well, now how can I learn? How can we share stories? And again, I think TAFISA can play a magnificent role in bringing together, especially developing and emerging sports, because it is hard to go it alone. It's hard to be new. It's hard to go against the big kids in the sport. So the ability for us to come together as smaller sports or emerging sports or developing sports and figure out how to learn from each other and to leverage each other, I think would be incredibly helpful.
Okay, thanks. And Sharon, your
Yes,
time.
it was it's very interesting to see your presentation, Juan, because in some point I recognize ourselves. In some point I say, oh my God, it's really that. So you are absolutely right. We must learn each other. I am always open to learn from the other. I think always sometimes the other are best than me as an attitude. And so it was absolutely interesting. I know that in Perugia is involved the Federation of Traditional Games. In Italy, we have a long story and a very ancient culture about games, traditional games. Some of them are a little bit strange, maybe, but I think in every country is that. It's very important because some traditional games must survive. Kids now are not playing anymore some games that I played when I was kid. This is a kind of culture that we are losing, and we must keep alive this culture because our history also in the game, sport and tradition are together, because for any game there is a reason which was invented or was played because there was some material available locally or something like that. So it means as a meaning also the game, and lose that is like an animal that is in extinction. It's something that we must avoid absolutely. So TAFISA is playing a fantastic role for that because is putting together the organization quite small like mine and putting together traditional game. I'm following the Facebook, Instagram. Every day there is a post regarding some games, very interesting. There is a book to write. Maybe after the games could be interesting, edit a book about all these activities, because they must remain as a legacy of the game. So I'm very, very satisfied. I'm happy to be in this event. And I must really thank you on behalf of my International Federation, really.
Okay, thanks. Jean-Francois, you can promise something for the future?
Promise, I don't know, but what I can always promise for sure is that we will continue, and TAFISA is really committed into promoting all sorts of physical activities, whatever the sport, whatever the movement, and we will be supporting, of course, emerging sports and emerging cultures. And you are talking about a book, Chiara, but here I have to, I mean, of course, unfortunately, we cannot meet in person during those days in Lisbon. And it is very sad because this is the essence of the TAFISA Games. But I really have to put my hat down to the organizing committee and to the Portuguese Institute of Youth and Sport, where George is working, because they have put together in only a few months an incredible virtual concept. And we will definitely learn out of it as well for the next edition. So I already look forward to Perugia. I look forward to the World Games in Russia in 2024, because we will have physical events, hopefully. But what we will have learned from this virtual concept is that maybe we manage in future some different ways. As a legacy of those games, we're not going to have a book, but we're going to have the very first online video library of traditional sports and of new sports, which the organizing committee will set up. We also have now countries which could not afford to come to Portugal, but they shared videos. And we have access to sport, to activities from countries which could not have made it otherwise. So how in future will we be able to bring together, in a way, the old concept the physical concept, which is what we want to go back to, but how can we update it with the innovation that Portugal has been creating for this edition? That in a way our next challenge.
Okay, thanks. It was a pity because this impact of COVID, but as Jean-Francois said, maybe it can organize for the future a new way to share, because when say share must learn with each other. Maybe it can define a new way to work with country and developed country in Africa, Asia, America, and South Pacific. And I would like to thank our speakers, Chiara Volonté and Dwayne from Canada, and Jean-Francois from TAFISA. I would like to thank Luis Guerra is from the organizing committee, and the Portuguese Institute of Sport and Youth, and the Portuguese Sport Confederation, and the FISA also for the organization of these games and for this seminar and for this session. Thank you. Till the next time.